Isle of Sierra Leone using Hofstede's cultural theory, compiled by Dylan Weens, Ashley Gallagher, Rachel Vaca, and Robert Ellens. In this presentation, we'll first look into the overview of Sierra Leone, with a focus on statistics, religion, and political atmosphere. Second, an overview of Hofstede's 6 cultural dimensions, followed by Sierra Leone's characteristics using these 6 dimensions. The Republic of Sierra Leone, as it is officially known, is a West African country home to 5.8 million people. Only 36% of the population is located in urban areas, with the remainder living in rural or even sub-rural areas. Those who call the country home are very diverse in culture. 30% of the country is made of the Temne African tribe, 30% is the Mende African tribe, and 20 other native African tribes make up the other 30%, for a total of 90% African tribes. The last 10% is made of Creole nations. And lastly, refugees from Liberia's civil war, Europeans, Lebanese, Pakistanis, and Indians contribute in small numbers. Although the country has a diverse culture, its religious makeup is somewhat more differential, but exact figures vary by study. The majority of the population follows the Muslim faith, followed by Christian, with the indigenous religions following. Depending on the source, Muslim followers make up between 60 to 72% of the nation. The Christian population is between 10% and 30%. And lastly, indigenous religions make up between 1 and 10%, again depending on the study. Politically, the democratic country runs similar to North American models with a single president. Currently, His Excellency Dr. Ernest Bey Koroma and Vice President Alhaji S.S. Sam Sumana, followed by a presidential cabinet of ministers. Each government term lasts 5 years with the ability to repeat a second term. The current government is said to be law-abiding and respectful of human rights, including freedom of religion.
The Hofstede's theory of 6 cultural dimensions. There are 6 dimensions that make up Hofstede's framework analysis. The first dimension is power distance. It explains the extent to which the lower class assumes that the distribution of power is not distributed equally among society. This dimension is based on how people deal with inequalities that society is faced with. The higher class societies that hold a great deal of power distance received a rank position of hierarchy, in which every member of society has a position. Individualism versus collectivism. Individualism is when each member of society is expected to defend for themselves and their family members. Collectivism is when society assumes for their family members of a specific social circle to take care of them in return for undivided loyalty. A population standing in regards to this type of dimension is based on whether or not society's self-image is determined by either I or we. Third dimension, masculinity versus femininity. Based on how society functions as a whole based on each aspect of the dimension. Masculinity explains that there is a trendiness for achievement, heroism, confidence, and material incentives for success. Femininity explains that there is trendiness towards cooperation, modesty, sharing compassion for the fragile, and standard of life. Fourth dimension, uncertainty avoidance. It explains the extent to which individuals of society feel uncomfortable with insecurity and vagueness. When countries have strong uncertainty avoidance, they have a firm understanding of beliefs and behaviors and are biased to untraditional forms of behaviors and ideas. When a society has a weak uncertainty avoidance dimension, the society as a whole is calmer and has a more relaxed attitude. Therefore, practice means more than values. Fifth dimension, long-term versus short-term orientation. Based on how society finds both virtue and the absolute truth. Long-term orientation can be explained as being associated with society's quest for virtue. Long-term orientation rely on the fact that truth is based on the situation, setting, and time. Short-term orientation can be explained by society being highly concerned with finding the absolute truth. Short-term orientation societies think normatively, value traditions, and saving for the future. Sixth dimension, indulgence versus restraint. It focuses on whether society indulgences or lives a strict rule-based life. An indulgence is when a society allows for themselves to indulge in the basics and natural human drives that are associated with enjoying themselves and having fun. Resistance is when society does not indulge in personal needs and lives a very strict and rule-abiding lifestyle.
The application of Hofstad's theory of cultural dimensions on Sierra Leone. Individualism versus collectivism. The center focus of the individualism dimension is the amount of independence within a society associated with its members. Individualism is when individuals within the society maintain the ideology that they are responsible to take care of themselves or the immediate family only. Sierra Leone is considered a collectivist society. Citizens belong to groups and take care of each other in exchange for a sense of loyalty within the group. The culture consists of tightly knit groups that expect their relatives or members of that group to consider them as a priority. A sense of we is displayed within the Sierra Leone country culture. Collectivism does not have a political meaning. It refers only to the group and not the state as a whole. Maintaining a sense of loyalty in a country like Sierra Leone is essential and overrides many other policies and regulations within the culture. The collectivist society displayed in Sierra Leone develops a strong relationship that encourages everyone to take responsibility for all members within the group. In this society, any offense leads to shame. With regards to the business side of society and relationships between employees and their employers, a family link is involved based on moral terms. Factors such as hiring, promotion, decisions, or firing take the opinions and views of the employees into account, and management is in charge of managing the group as a whole. The masculinity versus femininity dimension. Masculinity in comparison to femininity considers the role distribution between genders in a society. The assertive pole is viewed as masculine opposed to caring pole that is feminine. Sierra Leone is ranked as a feminine society. The dominant roles within the society of Sierra Leone are based on the care for others and standards of quality of life. Generally, a feminine society is viewed as cooperative. Modest standing out from the crowd is not admirable. They are consensus-oriented, and the desire to care for weak is important to members of the society as well. For Sierra Leone, achieving a high standard for quality of life for the members of society represents success. Working is viewed as a necessity to live, and people are influenced to like what they do in their career. The goal for managers in this dimension is to achieve an agreement between the employees of the company. Conflicts are resolved through compromise and negotiation tactics, and favorable incentives include flexibility of a schedule or lifestyle and free time. Effective management in Sierra Leone relies on managers' ability to make decisions and involve themselves in the company's needs and employees' needs, creating a balance. Equality is highly valued, and managers must show that they must care for their employees. The indulgence versus restraint dimension is the sixth and newest addition to the Hofstad's theory of cultural dimensions. Therefore, there is a limited availability of analysis on the topic. The people of Sierra Leone display a high level of restraint and responsibility towards their country. The culture of their society is one that suppresses gratification. Sierra Leone is a country that consists of strict social norms through government participation and society's cultural beliefs that regulate the population. Sierra Leone is a country that does not participate in indulgence. Their culture is not based on the allowance of gratification related to natural human drives that allow for a lifestyle based on enjoyment and fun.
Uncertainty avoidance. When determining uncertainty avoidance within a country, one must discover how a society deals with the fact that the future is unpredictable, and whether or not it should attempt to mold it or simply let it play out. This uncertainty results in concern and is a test of how the country will deal with it. So, when determining the scale of uncertainty avoidance in a country, one must study how threatened a culture feels from uncertainty and what it has done to avoid it. Sierra Leone is a country inclined to avoid uncertainty, but is not one to do anything radical. In comparison to Canada, the two countries act the same towards uncertainty. In these cultures, rules are not necessarily put in place to regulate society, but more because of an emotional need for them. Also, people feel that keeping themselves busy and working is an important element to life. Being on time and doing things the right way are norms, yet innovation may be resisted. Security needs are significant to citizens as well. Sierra Leone appears to have made much progress downwards in this dimension, as President Koroma, elected in 2007, has made political and economic change to the country in being more open to foreign exchange, uprooting government corruption and vastly strengthening infrastructure within his borders. Application of Hofstede's theory of cultural dimensions on Sierra Leone. Power distance. As noted earlier, this dimension addresses the inequalities of individuals in a society and looks at the cultural approach towards those inequalities. Power distance is the degree of acceptance that the less powerful members of societies and organizations have of the unequal distribution of power. Sierra Leone is a country in which there is an understanding of where people fit into society. This country is seen as one where the power distance dimension is rated high. In Sierra Leone, people accept that there is a hierarchy, and that depending on where you stand on this ladder, you realize and accept your role in society. The mere existence of this order means that one need not further justify his or her role. For the purposes of this report, hierarchy is measured by individual characteristics, which are inborn and cannot easily be altered. Centralization is also prominent, which means that there are institutions within Sierra Leone which are taking more control than normal over decision-making, and not transferring power to local councils or other small government bodies. Also, the people who work under a manager or supervisor expect to be told what to do and accept it as a norm. Contrast this to Canada, where there is more of a teamwork atmosphere and higher autonomy. Long-term orientation versus short-term orientation. Sierra Leone is ranked among the bottom 5 countries with the lowest ratio in the long-term orientation dimension, along with Nigeria, Ghana, Norway, and the Philippines. The long-term orientation dimension analyzes the amount that a culture or society partakes in long-term devotion to traditional values and adaptation to forward-thinking values. A low ranking on the long-term orientation dimension in countries such as Sierra Leone means that the country does not reinforce ideologies of traditional orientation. Change in Sierra Leone can occur more rapidly as long-term traditions and past commitments do not restrict changes from occurring. Long-term orientation is related to dealing with a society's search for morality. Sierra Leone maintains a future-oriented perspective rather than a conventional and short-term historical perspective.
Thank you for listening to our country profile on Sierra Leone.